I am Bridget, 35, a marketing manager from Lincoln, Nebraska. I am proud of the independent life I have built with my own two hands. One tense morning, in the middle of a work meeting, my phone buzzed on the table, snapping my concentration. The screen lit up with a message from my sister. Send me $2,800 for prom. My stomach dropped. $2,800 for one evening and a fancy dress. I quickly typed back, "Earn it yourself." Moments later, another text arrived, this time from my parents, and it hit harder than any slap. Pay or get out of this family. My pulse raced. I had spent years wiring them money, trusting it was for true emergencies or serious needs. But now they were threatening to cut me off unless I financed my sister's big night. Anger boiled up, mixed with a piercing awareness that they had probably been using me far longer than I had allowed myself to see. That night, I paced my apartment, replaying every word. Finally, I stopped, took a breath, and one by one, hit cancel, cancel, cancel. Every payment, every transfer, every bit of blind support. By 8:30 the next morning, my life had flipped completely. And soon, I would uncover a truth so unbelievable, it still makes my hands shake when I think about it. If you have ever faced family pressure like that, tell me in the comments. I would love to know how you handled it. And do not go anywhere, because more real stories like mine are coming soon. To understand why that message from my sister cut so deep, you need to know where I came from. I was not given a single shortcut. Everything I have, I earned. Hard work was my escape route. My parents never viewed it that way. They funneled every bit of affection, time, and money toward my younger sister, their miracle child, their little star. She was born when I was 17, already juggling school and part-time jobs, while they indulged her every desire. Mom was always in charge. Dad, the quiet enabler. They lived well beyond their means, splurging on designer outfits for her, extravagant birthday bashes, and weekend trips she did not need. Their suburban Lincoln home was constantly draining them with repairs they could not afford. Meanwhile, I was grinding through college, balancing two jobs, desperate to stand on my own feet. At 25, I landed my first marketing position. By 30, I was managing campaigns for major brands, comfortably living on my own. No debts, no obligations. To my parents, though, I became the family safety net. About 4 years ago, I opened a shared account to help with essentials, bills, groceries, utilities. It felt like the responsible thing to do. I assumed they would be careful with it, and I never checked closely. But my sister had grown used to luxury. $500 dresses, $200 dinners, endless indulgence, all funded by someone else's effort. My parents had fueled her behavior for years, emptying their savings just to keep her satisfied. I hadn't realized how deep their enabling had gone until recently. All my life, I had been the outsider, the one who had to earn approval, while my sister coasted through life without consequence. Mom would always say, "She's young, let her live a little," and Dad would silently agree. I stayed focused, built my career, and sent money whenever they reached out. The family account I created turned out to be the biggest error of my life. I believed it was for necessities, not indulgence. But the clues were there. My sister's new jewelry, my mother's vague explanations about unexpected expenses. I should have questioned it long before. Somehow, being the dependable one meant that I was also the easiest to exploit. When I was younger, Mom's words were always sharp whenever I needed help. "Figure it out, Bridget." But for my sister, they would move heaven and earth. I still remember her 10th birthday, a $2,000 princess-themed extravaganza, while I spent weekends at work just to afford my textbooks. My father once said, "She's our second chance to get it right." The words burned, but I swallowed the hurt and kept moving forward. Year after year, my sister's expectations grew. New phones, concert tickets, endless shopping sprees. Nothing was ever too much. My parents ignored their dwindling balance, pretending everything was fine. I truly thought I was helping when I set up that account, but in reality, I had only made it easier for them to misuse my support. I had spent years proving I could thrive without their help, building a stable, independent life I could be proud of. Yet somehow, they still treated me as their bank. My sister never lifted a finger because my parents ensured she never had to. That day at work, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. On the screen, her message glared back at me. I need $2,800 for prom. Send it now. My blood pressure spiked. $2,800 for a single night, for a dress she would wear once, for a limo to flaunt in front of her friends. My hands trembled as I typed. No way. Get a job, earn it yourself. I hit send, expecting a sulky response or maybe a few complaints. Instead, the phone rang immediately. Her voice cut through, high-pitched and dripping with entitlement. "You're so selfish, Bridget. It's just prom. Why can't you help me?" I clenched the phone, forcing myself to stay composed. I said, "You're 18. Most kids work to pay for prom. You should too." Her scoff was pure venom. "You don't understand. I deserve this." And then, silence. She hung up, leaving me staring at the screen, heart pounding. Deserve it. Since when did she earn the right to my hard work? I tried to refocus on my tasks, but her words kept looping in my mind, each repetition cutting a little deeper. I'd spent years proving I could thrive without their help, building a stable, independent life I could be proud of. Yet somehow, they still treated me as their bank. My sister never lifted a finger because my parents ensured she never had to. "Let's start by checking the account activity," she said, already opening her laptop. She logged into the bank's portal using my credentials, her fingers flying across the keyboard as the records began to load. Within minutes, Ellen uncovered a string of transactions I hadn't looked at in years. Her brow creased as she scrolled. "There are multiple large withdrawals here," she murmured. "Some going to creditors, others to retail vendors." I leaned in, a knot forming in my stomach. "Retail?" I asked slowly. "What kind of retail?" Ellen kept scanning the screen. "High-end boutiques, jewelry stores, even a travel agency." The words made my pulse quicken. None of that had anything to do with groceries or utility bills. This wasn't survival spending, it was luxury. Ellen pulled up another year's worth of statements. "It appears your parents have been using this account to pay off various debts," she explained. "Credit cards, an auto loan, and even a second mortgage." A chill spread through me. A second mortgage? They'd never mentioned that. I thought of all the times they'd called asking for a little help, and how I'd wired money without hesitation, convinced I was easing their burdens. But the truth was uglier. I'd been unknowingly funding their lifestyle. Then Ellen highlighted a list of smaller recurring payments. "These are consistent monthly charges," she said quietly. "Clothing stores, restaurants, and here, a prom planning service." My breath caught. The $2,800 my sister demanded suddenly made perfect sense. "They've been using my money to indulge her," I whispered. Ellen gave a grim nod. "It looks that way. Your parents have been covering their debts and your sister's luxuries straight from your account." I sank back in my chair, numb. All those years, I'd believed I was paying for essentials. Instead, I'd been financing lies. When I left Ellen's office that evening, a heavy dread followed me out the door. My parents' threats weren't just emotional manipulation. They were part of a long, deliberate deception. I knew I needed more proof before confronting them, but one thing was certain. I couldn't let this continue. The next day, I went back to Ellen's office. The room was dim, the only light spilling from a desk lamp onto stacks of legal folders. Ellen looked up, her expression serious, and slid a thick file toward me. "These are the complete bank records," she said quietly. "You should prepare yourself." I took a deep breath and glanced at the first page. My vision blurred for a moment as I read the totals. Over 4 years, more than $100,000 had been withdrawn from that family account. My hard-earned money siphoned off little by little. A wave of betrayal surged through me so strong, it made my hands shake. I had trusted them completely, convinced my sacrifices were helping them survive, but all along they had been bleeding me dry. Ellen tapped the printout of transaction logs spread across her desk. "Your parents made dozens of large transfers," she said, flipping through the pages with a frown. "Payments to credit card companies, a car loan, and even a second mortgage that wasn't disclosed." My throat tightened. A second mortgage, after all their talk about the house being nearly paid off. Then she pointed to another section where smaller yet frequent withdrawals appeared. Here, she circled a few entries: boutiques, jewelry stores, a travel agency, and this one, a $3,000 payment to an event planner, a prom planner. Suddenly, my sister's $2,800 demand wasn't random. It was part of the same pattern. She'd been raised to believe my money existed for her convenience. I leaned back, dizzy with realization. Every memory of my mother's calls flashed in my mind. The urgent tone, the rehearsed lines about needing just a little help. I had wired thousands, thinking it was for groceries, overdue bills, basic survival. But I saw it now. I'd been funding debts, indulgences, and my sister's entitlement. "How could they do this?" I murmured, mostly to myself. Ellen sighed softly. "People justify anything when they're desperate." Her voice was calm, but heavy with truth. The next morning, Wednesday, I called the bank. It took 10 minutes to shut down the joint account, but each confirmation felt like snapping another link in a chain I'd carried too long. Years of responsibility for their chaos, severed in a few clicks. With the account frozen, I opened a blank email addressed to all of them. My message was short, clinical, and final. "The joint account is closed. I know about the $100,000. No more money." I pressed send, my hand steady, even as my chest felt like lead. This wasn't just financial. It was betrayal, and it had gone too far. Within hours, my phone lit up nonstop. My sister's number appeared first. Her voice came through sharp with fury and panic. "You can't do this," she shouted. "We need that account." "Need it for what?" I asked evenly. "Another designer dress?" She sputtered, then screamed, "You're destroying this family," before hanging up. A text from my mother followed. Paragraphs of indignation. "How dare you accuse us? We needed that money to survive." Survive on luxury vacations and jewelry? Then came my father's message, shorter, but just as manipulative. "Bridget, think about what you're doing to us." I didn't reply. Their words no longer carried weight. I called Ellen instead, my voice trembling from a mix of anger and liberation. "They're losing it," I said, completely freaking out. Ellen didn't sound surprised. "They're panicking because their safety net is gone," she said simply. "You did the right thing." I wanted to believe her. Shutting down the account had felt liberating, but it also left a hollow ache. The feeling that I'd just severed what little remained of my family. Their deceit had changed everything, and I no longer knew what future, if any, we still shared. A week later, I found myself driving through suburban Lincoln, hands gripping the steering wheel tight. Beside me sat a folder thick with bank statements, undeniable proof of what they'd done. Ellen's findings replayed in my head. Over 4 years, they had siphoned $100,000 from the joint account and amassed $500,000 in debt. Today, I would confront them. No more avoidance, no more lies. When I stepped into their living room, the air felt heavy, almost suffocating. My mother perched on the couch, eyes narrowed, lips pressed thin. My father stood near the window, arms folded, his expression guarded and cold. My sister sat slouched in an armchair, absorbed in her phone, pretending not to see me. I didn't bother with small talk. "I know everything," I said, dropping the folder onto the coffee table. Papers slid across the surface. Account statements, loan records, credit card payments, and a second mortgage I hadn't known existed. "The account I opened to help you, you drained it. $100,000 gone, and you're sitting on $500,000 in debt." My mother's expression twisted, but it wasn't guilt I saw. It was indignation. "How dare you dig through our private affairs?" she snapped, her voice quivering. "This is family business." "Family?" I felt anger rise, steady, but scorching. "I've been your lifeline for years. And you've treated me like an ATM. You lied to me. You said it was for bills, for necessities, and all the while you were funding her, I said, gesturing toward my sister, who still refused to look up. My father's jaw tightened as he stepped forward. You don't understand, Bridget. We had no choice. The debts were piling up. You were supposed to help us. Supposed to help? I repeated, stunned. I did help, thousands every year, and you wasted it on things you couldn't afford. My mother's tears started to flow. You're so selfish, she cried. Everything we did was for her, for your sister's future. I turned toward my sister, waiting for her to say something. Anything. But she sat motionless, eyes fixed on her phone, offering no defense, no remorse. That silence hit harder than their excuses. It wasn't ignorance. It was complicity. She believed she deserved it all. My father's voice rose, filled with anger. You can't walk away from us, he shouted, eyes blazing. We're your family. You owe us. Owe them? The word made my chest burn. I don't owe you anything, I said, louder this time. The account is closed. No more money. You're on your own. My mother gasped, clutching her chest as though I'd struck her. You're abandoning us, she cried. My sister finally lifted her gaze, eyes wide with panic, but still said nothing. I held their stares, refusing to flinch. You abandoned me first, I said, voice trembling but firm. You used my trust and my savings for years. The room exploded. My mother screamed about loyalty, my father threw accusations of betrayal, and my sister sat frozen, silent in her guilt. I gathered the papers from the table, my hands shaking from a storm of fury and release. I'm done, I said, turning toward the door. Their voices followed me, desperate and angry, but I didn't look back. I had offered them honesty, and all they gave me was blame. That confrontation was the final severing of their control. Back home, I made my decision permanent. The weight of betrayal pressed hard, but clarity steadied me. Closing the account wasn't enough. I unlocked my phone and blocked both of my parents' numbers. Then, their emails. Gone to spam. My sister's number followed. Each tap felt like cutting another tether I'd been dragging for years. Painful, yes, but freeing. I refused to be their bank, their fallback plan, their safety net. Months passed. Then I heard through a distant cousin that my parents had declared bankruptcy. $500,000 in debt. Credit cards, loans, that second mortgage, had finally crushed them. Their home in Lincoln, the one they'd always called almost paid off, was gone. I pictured the moving trucks, my mother's tears, my father's hollow stare. Part of me hurt for them, but only part. They had built their downfall themselves, using my hard work to postpone what was inevitable. And my sister, she wasn't spared either. Without their money, she'd been forced to find a job. The cousin mentioned she was working part-time at a clothing store, folding shirts, ringing up customers. I imagined her behind the counter, learning the value of what she once demanded so easily. The girl who once expected $2,800 dresses without lifting a finger was finally earning her own. I didn't feel victorious, just quietly, deeply relieved. Maybe someday she'd understand what I had tried so hard to show her. As for me, I finally discovered something I'd never really known before. Peace. The endless calls, the guilt, the pressure, all of it was gone. I began focusing on my own life again, my work, my savings, my future. I started therapy to untangle years of emotional manipulation and to rebuild the confidence my family had slowly eroded. Setting boundaries wasn't simple. It meant accepting that they might never change, that they'd never see me as anything more than a source of money. But it also meant reclaiming my freedom. I learned that saying no isn't cruel, it's necessary. I stopped letting their chaos dictate my choices and started protecting my own stability. When I look back now, I see the lesson clearly. Family doesn't equal obligation. Love shouldn't come with strings attached or a price to pay. I'd spent years believing I had to rescue them, that their problems were somehow my responsibility. I was wrong. What truly saved me was drawing that line, taking charge of my finances, and walking away from their toxicity. And if you're out there facing something similar, hear me when I say this. You don't owe anyone your peace of mind or your security. Guard it fiercely. That's not selfishness, that's survival. To everyone listening, thank you for being part of my journey. It's been painful, but sharing it has helped me heal. I'd love to hear your stories too. Have you ever had to set boundaries with your family? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this story struck a chord, hit subscribe for more true experiences like mine. Your support means the world.